Okay, so welcome back to another episode of Easy English Podcast. If this is your first time listening, welcome. My name is Adam, and I'm really happy you're here. Whether you're just starting out with English or you've been learning for a while, I hope you find these episodes helpful, fun, and full of useful everyday expressions. Today, we're diving into something super interesting and very practical: idioms. Now, if you're new to English, you might be wondering, what exactly is an idiom? Well, let me explain it simply. An idiom is a phrase or expression that has a meaning that isn't obvious from the individual words themselves. In other words, the words together create a meaning that's different from what each word literally means. That's why idioms can sometimes be confusing for language learners, because you can't always guess their meanings just by looking at the words. For example, if someone says it's raining cats and dogs, they don't actually mean animals are falling from the sky. They just mean it's raining heavily. Sounds funny, right? But that's how idioms work. They add flavor and personality to the language. And once you understand them, you start to sound much more natural when speaking English. So why are idioms important? Well, imagine you're talking to a native speaker and they say something like, "Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater." If you take that literally, it sounds pretty strange. Who would even think about throwing babies around? But the real meaning is, don't reject something completely just because part of it has problems. So understanding idioms helps you avoid confusion and lets you truly connect with native speakers. Also, using idioms correctly makes your speech more colorful and expressive. It shows that you're not just memorizing grammar rules, you're actually thinking and communicating like a fluent speaker. And that's one of the goals of learning a language, right? To feel confident enough to express yourself naturally and clearly. Now, before we jump into the list of idioms, let me give you a quick overview of what we'll cover today. We're going to go through some of the most common idioms used in everyday conversations. I'll explain what each one means, where it comes from, if there's a known origin, and how you can use it in real-life situations. We'll start with some general idioms that are used in everyday life, then move on to idioms related to time, emotions, and finally, I'll share some tips on how to use idioms effectively without sounding forced or unnatural. Sound good? All right, let's begin with one of my favorite everyday idioms: hit the ground running. You might hear this phrase in many different contexts, especially in work environments or when someone starts a new task. So what does it mean? Well, if someone hits the ground running, it means they start doing something quickly and energetically, usually right from the beginning. Think of it like starting a race and immediately sprinting off without hesitation. For example, if you join a new company and immediately jump into projects without needing much guidance, your boss might say, "Wow, you really hit the ground running." Or if you're helping a friend move house and you start unpacking boxes the moment you arrive, they might thank you by saying, "You really hit the ground running today." This idiom is great to use when you want to describe someone who gets straight into action without wasting time. It gives a sense of speed and efficiency, which is always appreciated in both personal and professional settings. Another common idiom you might have heard before is break a leg. Wait, what? Break a leg? That sounds painful. But no, in English, this is actually a way of wishing someone good luck, especially before a performance like a play, a concert, or even a big presentation. Where did this come from? Well, there are a few theories. One popular explanation is that actors didn't like saying good luck directly because they believed it might bring bad luck instead. So they started using phrases like break a leg as a kind of reverse psychology. Another theory is that if you break a leg on stage, you probably had to bow or curtsy, which means you were successful. So next time you know someone is about to do something important, maybe they're giving a speech, auditioning for a role, or taking a big exam, you can cheer them on by saying, break a leg. It's a fun and quirky way to wish someone well without being too direct. Moving on, here's a phrase that everyone loves. Piece of cake. Have you heard this one before? If someone says something is a piece of cake, they mean it's very easy to do. Just like how eating a slice of cake is simple and enjoyable, doing something that's a piece of cake doesn't require much effort. Imagine you ask your friend how their math test went, and they reply, "Oh, it was a piece of cake." That means they found it really easy. Or maybe you try a new recipe for the first time, and it turns out perfectly. You could say, that was a piece of cake. This idiom is perfect for describing tasks or challenges that seem effortless. Of course, what's a piece of cake for one person might be difficult for another, so context is important. But overall, it's a positive and lighthearted way to talk about things that aren't hard at all. All right, now let's switch gears a bit and look at some idioms related to time, because time is such a big part of our daily lives. And there are quite a few idioms that reflect how we experience it. One of the most commonly used idioms about time is time flies. This is such a poetic expression, and it basically means that time passes quickly, often faster than we realize. Think about how fast the year has gone by, or how quickly your vacation ended. You might say, wow, time really flew this week. This idiom is often used when reflecting on past events. For example, if you meet up with a friend after a long time, you might say, it feels like only yesterday we were sitting in class together. Time really flies. It's a gentle reminder to appreciate moments because they pass by so quickly. Another time-related idiom that's a little more dramatic is in the nick of time. What does that mean? Well, if something happens in the nick of time, it means it happened just before it was too late, at the last possible moment. For instance, imagine you're rushing to catch a train and you arrive at the platform just as the doors are closing. Your friend might say, "You made it in the nick of time." Or if a doctor arrives to help someone right before the situation becomes dangerous, you could say, "Thank goodness the doctor got here in the nick of time." The origin of this phrase is a bit unclear, but some believe it comes from Old British slang, where nick meant a small mark or point in time. So in the nick of time literally means at the exact moment needed. It's a great way to emphasize urgency and timing. Now here's a very famous idiom that reflects the value society places on productivity. Time is money. This phrase is often used in business and work environments, and it means that time spent doing something is valuable, especially if it leads to profit or success. If someone tells you time is money, they might be reminding you not to waste time on unnecessary things. For example, a manager might say, "We need to finish this project efficiently. Remember, time is money." Or if you're spending too long deciding what to wear before work, a friend might joke, Come on, time is money. This idiom highlights the idea that every minute counts, and how we choose to spend our time can have a direct impact on our results. While it may sound a bit cold or materialistic, it's still a widely accepted concept in modern life. Now let's explore some idioms that relate to feelings and emotions, because those are a huge part of how we communicate with others. One of the most vivid emotional idioms is butterflies in your stomach. You've probably heard this before. It's used to describe that nervous or excited feeling you get in your stomach when you're anxious or anticipating something important. For example, if you're about to go on a first date, you might say, "I've got butterflies in my stomach. I'm so nervous." Or if you're waiting for the results of an important exam, you could tell a friend, "I've got butterflies. I don't know if I passed." The sensation people describe as butterflies in the stomach is caused by adrenaline and nerves, and this idiom beautifully captures that fluttery feeling. It's a great way to talk about nervousness or excitement without being too formal. On the opposite end of the emotional spectrum is the idiom over the moon. If someone is over the moon, it means they're extremely happy or delighted about something. It's a very positive and joyful expression. Imagine your best friend wins a scholarship or gets a job offer. You might say, "I'm so over the moon for you." Or if you receive a surprise gift from a loved one, you could respond with, "I'm absolutely over the moon." This phrase is believed to have originated in the UK, and it paints a picture of joy so high that you're practically floating above the moon itself. It's a beautiful way to show genuine happiness for someone else, or express your own excitement. Lastly, let's look at a more serious emotional idiom. Heartbroken. This one is used to describe intense sadness, usually following a breakup or loss. When someone is heartbroken, it means they feel deep emotional pain, as if their heart has been broken. For example, if your friend ends a long-term relationship, you might comfort them by saying, "I know you're heartbroken now, but things will get better." Or if someone loses a loved one, they might say, "I'm completely heartbroken." Even though hearts don't literally break, this idiom powerfully conveys the depth of emotional pain. It's a sensitive and meaningful way to talk about grief and sadness. Now, before we wrap up, I want to leave you with a few tips on how to use idioms effectively in your everyday conversations. First, always pay attention to the context. Idioms can mean different things depending on the situation, and using them incorrectly might confuse the listener. For example, saying "break a leg" to someone who's injured would definitely be inappropriate, so make sure the situation fits the idiom. Second, consider your audience. If you're talking to native speakers, idioms can help you blend in and sound more natural. But if you're speaking with someone who's also learning English, it might be better to keep things simple or explain the idiom if you use it. Third, don't overuse idioms. While they're fun and colorful, using too many in one conversation can make you sound artificial or overly dramatic. Use them sparingly and naturally, like salt in food, just enough to enhance the flavor. And finally, practice, practice, practice. Try incorporating idioms into your writing or speaking exercises. Watch movies, listen to podcasts, or read books where native speakers use them, and soon you'll start recognizing when and how to use them naturally. So to recap everything we covered today, we looked at some of the most common idioms used in everyday conversations. We talked about expressions like hit the ground running, break a leg, and piece of cake for general use. Then moved on to time-related idioms like time flies, in the nick of time, and time is money. We also explored emotional idioms such as butterflies in your stomach, over the moon, and heartbroken. Remember, idioms are like spices in a dish. They add flavor, personality, and richness to your language. Learning them takes time, but with consistent exposure and practice, you'll start to recognize them more easily and use them confidently in your conversations. I hope this episode was helpful and gave you some new expressions to try out. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to subscribe to Easy English Podcasts and leave a review to help us grow. You can also share this episode with a friend who's learning English. Sharing knowledge is always a good idea. Until next time, keep practicing, stay curious, and remember, learning English should be fun, not stressful. You're doing great, and I believe in you. See you in the next episode.